Way, way down, deep below the Pacific, there's a world that's totally dark, nearly frozen, and just so hostile. I mean, for a long time, we were convinced nothing could possibly live there. It's pretty much the last great unexplored frontier on our own planet. So, you know what? Let's take the plunge. So, what exactly is lurking down there? 11,000 meters below the waves? That's the big question, right? And that's what we're going to figure out. Come on, let's descend together into the deepest part of our world, the Mariana Trench, and see what secrets are hiding in that crushing total darkness. Okay, to really wrap your head around just how deep this thing is, picture this. You take Mount Everest, right? The highest point on Earth. You could drop it right into the trench, and its peak would still be under 2 kilometers of water. I mean, think about that. It's an abyss on a scale that's, well, it's almost impossible to even imagine. So a question you're probably asking is, how does a feature this massive even get made? I mean, it's not just some random hole in the ground. No, it's the result of one of the most powerful, non-stop processes on our entire planet. You could almost call it Earth's biggest recycling operation. Okay, so here's the deal. The whole process is called subduction, and it basically works like a giant conveyor belt for the planet. See, the part of the Pacific plate that's hitting the trench is super old. We're talking 170 million years old. And over all that time, it's cooled down and gotten really, really dense and heavy. So when this old, heavy plate slams into the younger, lighter Philippine plate, well, it's got nowhere to go but down. It's forced to bend and just plunge straight into the Earth's mantle, carving out this incredible trench as it sinks. And here's the thing. This isn't just happening in one isolated spot. Not at all. The trench is a major player in the massive Ring of Fire, that huge 40,000 kilometer zone of, well, destruction that circles the Pacific. The exact same process, subduction, that carves out the trench, it's also responsible for 90% of the world's earthquakes and that whole chain of volcanoes we see. It's all part of one enormous, interconnected, and honestly pretty violent system. All right, you ready? Our descent into the abyss begins now. As we go deeper and deeper, you can just imagine the light from the surface starting to disappear, and the world around us getting more and more alien with every meter we drop. So our first stop is what's called the sunlight zone, or the epipelagic zone. Down to about 200 meters, this is where it all begins. Sunlight can still reach here, which powers photosynthesis for these tiny little organisms, phytoplankton. They're the absolute base of the entire ocean food web. And get this, they produce about half of the oxygen that you and I are breathing right now. Incredible, right? Okay, we're pushing past 200 meters now, and we're entering the twilight zone. Just as those last little bits of sunlight fade away, something else appears, a new kind of light, bioluminescence. Life down here literally makes its own light. And this zone is just packed with life. In fact, some scientists think it holds more living stuff, more biomass, than the rest of the ocean put together. It's home to the most abundant vertebrate on Earth, a little guy called the bristlemouth fish. There are more of them than all the birds, mammals, reptiles, and other fish on the entire planet combined. Just wow. And there we go. 1,000 meters deep. Welcome to the midnight zone. Down here, there is absolutely no sunlight, ever. It is a world of constant, total darkness. The water is almost freezing, and the pressure is just immense, and it's still getting stronger. To survive down here, life has had to get, well, really, really weird. And yeah, things get super strange down here. You've got the famous anglerfish just dangling its own glowing fishing lure to trick its prey. There's the giant squid with eyes the size of dinner plates, just so it can catch any tiny flicker of bioluminescent light. And then you have the pelican eel, which is basically just a giant swimming mouth with a stomach that can swallow things bigger than itself. A lot of creatures here also show something called deep-sea gigantism. Because it's so cold and food is so scarce, their metabolisms are super slow and they live a long, long time. This lets them grow way, way bigger than their cousins up in the shallow water. Okay, we're now past 6,000 meters. We have officially entered the deepest layer of the ocean, the Hadal Zone. And yes, that name is no accident. It's named after Hades, the Greek underworld. A pretty fitting name, I think you'll agree. This is the realm of the deepest ocean trenches. So what's the one thing that defines this zone above all else? It's the pressure. We're talking more than 1,000 times the pressure we feel right now at the surface. 1,000 times. To put that in perspective,
That's like having a ton of weight pressing down on just your thumbnail. It's a force so intense it would literally crush most living cells. Bones, shells, they just dissolve. It really feels like an environment that's completely anti-life. And yet, somehow, life finds a way.
But that brings up a really big question, right? How can anything live without sunlight? For the longest time, we thought it was impossible. But the answer, and this really did redefine biology, is something called chemosynthesis. Instead of using sunlight, tiny microbes down here get their energy from chemical reactions coming out of volcanic vents. They build an entire food web from scratch in total darkness. This discovery was an absolute game changer. It proved that life doesn't actually need the sun, and that realization completely changed where we started looking for life on other worlds, like in the hidden oceans of Jupiter's moon, Europa.
All right, speaking of weird adaptations to this pressure, I've got a number for you. 20 centimeters. What on earth could be 20 centimeters long down here?
Believe it or not, that's the size of a single-celled organism called a xenophoriophore. It's basically a giant amoeba. Let that sink in. A single cell, almost the size of a dinner plate, just happily living its life under pressure that would obliterate our cells in an instant. It's maybe the perfect example of just how utterly alien life can be in these extreme places. But, for all the incredible things we have found, the biggest truth about the Mariana Trench is just how little we really know. This place is, without a doubt, the final frontier right here on our own planet.
And this chart, wow, it really puts our lack of knowledge into perspective, doesn't it? Look, in a normal freshwater lake, you might find thousands of different species. But in the entire Haddle Zone, that's all the deep trenches on Earth combined, we've only identified about 400 species. And that's not because there isn't more life down there. It's because we've barely even started to look.
There's a great analogy for this. Imagine that everything we know about the Grand Canyon came from just dropping a camera into the same spot a few times and always at night. That's pretty much where we are with the deep ocean. We have these tiny little snapshots, and from that, we're trying to understand a place that's enormous. It just makes you wonder, what are we missing?
And the reason we know so little? It's simple, really. It's just incredibly, incredibly hard to get there. The very first time people went down was in 1960, but then it took more than 50 years before the next person made the dive. 50 years! To this day, only 27 people have ever been to the bottom to Challenger Deep. To put that into perspective, thousands of people have climbed Mount Everest. Getting to the bottom of our own ocean is, in many ways, harder and more dangerous than getting to the moon. And that just leaves us with this one final, kind of startling thought. We literally know more about the surface of Mars than we do about the bottom of our own oceans. So as we keep looking up to the stars and dreaming of other worlds, it's worth remembering that there's a vast alien world right here on our own planet. And it makes you ask, what other secrets are still hidden down there just waiting to be discovered?